This is the hardest pattern to read because half of it is in English and the other half is in French. So I'm trying to piece it together just by knowing some of the pattern pieces where they go. But the instructions, I'm going to try to figure it out. So we'll see if it works out. I started off by laying down 2 plies of fabric, and then I kind of cut the entire pattern, and I ended up laying down the pieces on top of the fabric so that I could see which pieces I need based off of my size, as well as like the pattern and what's going to work for me, because the pattern only comes from sizes 8 through 16. However, I'm between a size 4 and a 6, so that's a bit of a difference. But anyway, again, this is Vogue Patterns V 1938, and I got it at Joann Fabrics. So here you could see that I started kind of piecing the design together, the corset parts that I need to sew together. And they are numbered, so that did help, even though part of it was in French, but at least it was numbered, and I kind of could see, like, based off of the pictures as well, like which pattern pieces it was. So that was super helpful. So I just kind of started cutting, and I did add 2 plies, like I said in the beginning, because I ended up cutting self and lining as well. And I used the same fabric. You don't have to use the same fabric, but honestly, for me, it just made sense and it was easier. As you can see, those were the 1, 2, 3 pieces that I needed. And now I'm going to start sewing it together. And I went ahead and used a overlock machine to kind of serge it together, and that was super helpful, and that's really fast as well, and it's clean, which I love. But you could also do it in a single needle if you don't have a serger. Just an FYI, you do have to cut it twice, and the reason for that is because we have the right side and then the left side, as you can see right here, and both of them are double. Once I had those pieces, I then ended up cutting and sewing the back panels. This is like the side/front panels, the 1, 2, 3 pieces that are numbered. However, I also need the back pieces, which are the 3 and 4, I believe, and I need to eventually gather all of the self and sew it together, and then all of the lining. But I first need to piece everything, like all the pieces together. So 6 and 7 are the back pieces. However, you'll see a little forward on that, because these are sizes 8 through 16. And like I mentioned, I'm between a size 4 and a size 6. I had to remove towards the end. I did sew everything together. However, I ended up removing these pieces 6 and 7, which are the back parts, because it was just so big on me that I literally had to remove that entire part. And then I just ended up sewing the 1, 2, 3 from both sides, from the left and the right, so that it would actually fit me. However, I did end up leaving the back panels just so that I could show you guys in the video what the corset would look like with all the panels and everything put together. But for me, I ended up removing them towards the end. But anyway, here's the self and the lining of the corset. The only thing that's missing are the cups. However, I just want to show you guys, we are not going to close it yet. We still have to top stitch all the seams that we ended up sewing so that it looks nice and clean. So this is where I top stitched it with a single needle. You don't need anything fancy, just use your single needle and top stitch all the seams. Once you are done top stitching all the seams on the self and the lining part, because you're going to have to do it on both, we end up moving to the cups, and this is where I ended up doing everything single needle, and I also added elastic on the top part of the cups. And the reason I added elastic is because I wanted to make sure that it had support all over the top, so that that part where the elastic is, all that is gonna is the top part of the top, and that kind of gives you a little bit more support so that it's not falling off, especially because it's not a stretch fabric, it's a cotton fabric. So but anyway, this is where I start gathering it. And I ended up doing this with the overlock first, but then we're gonna top stitch it towards the end. Now for the next part, I ended up adding some ruffle to it, another piece that I actually just made up. I just measured how long I wanted it, and I made it I cut it a little longer just so that I could have some room for the gathering, because I wanted to make this a peplum top. I personally don't like really short tops like crop tops or corsets or stuff like that too much. So I wanted to make it a peplum top, and all I had to do was just add some gathering, some ruffle, a little bit of it to it. Just ended up overlocking the edges, just the sides, so that I could have it nice and clean. And I cut it double. That's why, because you're not going to need self and lining for this piece. You only need self, but I needed a longer piece, so I ended up gathering two pieces together. And I used a single needle to do the gathering for this so that we could create that kind of ruffle effect. And so you always want to do any ruffle or any gathering like this with a single needle machine, as you can see right here. And you always put, I was taught this trick by my sewing contractor, but you're supposed to put your thumb in the back as it's coming out from sewing, so that it could come out a little bit more with shearing. However, this is the part where I realized that it was a little too short for my taste, so I ended up recutting the piece again and making it a little bit longer and kind of starting all over that process, which is fine. Honestly, it doesn't take long. So I started gathering again to do that like shearing effect, and I wanted to have more shearing also, so that when I put it on and finish the corset, it would really have like that pretty gathering that I like. But this is what it should start to look like. I started clipping everything together. I realized that I needed to take a little bit off from the front as well, because it was too big still, and that's the back part, but I was trying to, the back panels that I also need to remove. So I started removing the hooks so that I could cut a piece off so that it could fit better, tailored to my size. But you don't have to do this if you follow the instructions and you follow like your size. I just had to do so many edits on this because the sizing was not my size, so I kind of had to improvise with everything. And right here, as you can see, I'm just marking where I need to cut that part off, but I also need to leave enough space so that I can add the hook back on. So that's the part where I cut it, and this is what the shearing should look like. And this is the back panel 6 and 7 that I actually had to remove, and this is what my top looked like. I did end up adding straps to my top, and the reason for that is I just honestly I liked how it looked better with the straps versus strapless, but you don't have to add the straps if you don't want to. But this is what the corset peplum ended up looking like, and I honestly really loved how it came out. And that's the hooks that I added for the closure front part of the top. Okay, I was going to leave it without the straps because I did add elastic all around the top, but I really like it. Overall, I do like how the corset peplum top came out, and I love how the gathering looks. Like, I think it looks super cute. It gives it that like really nice look. And as you can see, I also top stitched that area. The one thing that I do suggest to kind of, I don't know, I personally didn't like this part, but the closing front part, instead of adding the hooks, I would probably add an invisible zipper next time, just so that it could like look a little bit cleaner. But I do like how this peplum bottom part came out. You don't have to add it. I personally ended up adding it. Anyway, this is what the top ended up looking like, and I hope you guys like this DIY/tutorial of this corset peplum. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will be doing more DIYs as well as fashion videos. Thanks for watching.